This is the Art of Darkness podcast with Kevin Kautzman.
And Brad Kelly. We're a couple of very online writers interested in the dark side of what drives creative people to create against all odds.
This show is about art and the people who make it, what it costs them, and what it takes to bring something unique and impactful into the world.
Each episode, we excavate the life and work of an artist you might think you know.
Don't worry, they're all safely dead.
On every episode, we try and find out just what the hell was wrong with them and how they worked through their darkness to create something that lives on after them and continues to move culture.
Find us online at artofdarkpod.com and on Twitter at artofdarkpod. We're back in the dark room. Another episode of, what's this podcast called again, Brad? Oh yeah, Art of Darkness. Oh yeah, well, it was rhetorical, Brad. Try not to talk.
Sorry. Yeah.
How are you, Brad? How have you been?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Deep into my Felakuti research, so that's going to be a fun episode in a few weeks.
Absolutely. So for people who know what this pod is, the heart of the podcast are biographical profiles of dead artists. Brad does a subject, walks me through the life of said subject. I do a subject, walk Brad through the life of said subject. We've got a nice little thing happening here right now where Brad is preparing Fela Kuti and I am preparing the singular David Bowie. Musicians who were alive, I mean, in sort of, I guess you'd say maybe peers. They were sort of in the same period. So this is going to be a very interesting 1-2 punch. And I'm going through the entire Bowie catalog that's on Spotify, record by record by record. That dude did not miss. Even when he missed, It was interesting, experimental, funky, weird. So stay tuned for that. The other main type of episode we do are called dark rooms, and we have guests come on. This is a home game for us because Mari's a co-host on this other little podcast I do for my theater company, Bad Mouth Theater Company. We have a podcast called Mouthing Off. It goes out on the radio here in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. And Mari is a playwright and an actor. And Mari, this is your Art of Darkness debut. Welcome to the other pod.
I know. I'm like finally in the free form podcast. Finally made it.
You did. You made it all the way to the dark room, and I'm so glad that you could do it. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. These dark rooms are always contextualized as a means for us to deepen the conversation around one of the core subjects that we covered. And you said you wanted to come on to talk about Sarah Kane, the great Sarah Kane. And it's been a minute since we did that episode, but maybe I'll just lead by asking, what, aside from the obvious, you're a playwright, she was a playwright. Like what is it that made you go, oh yeah, I want to come on and talk about Sarah Kane?
Well, first I was thinking about this. The way that I actually found your guys' show was my friend sent me the Sarah Kane episode like years ago because she just knew that I was like a huge fan. So very full circle moment for me. But I love Sarah Kane. She was like the first playwright that I ever experienced that taught me that theater could be something other than Guys and Dolls in Oklahoma and Neil Simon, which I think she is for a lot of people. And so I was like, I'm always excited to talk about Sarah Kane. I could do it every day for hours. Her work is incredible. It's like nothing else. And she existed in the context of all of these other writers that were working at the same time, but she's completely singular at the same time. And I mean, she deals with violence and sexuality in this incredibly dark and funny way. She's so formally experimental. I don't think there's ever been anybody who writes like her since or before.
Totally agree. And, and I spent a year at the Royal Court where her shadow was very long. And Brad is not a playwright. So you're the odd man out. This is nice. It's so often we have novelists. We don't have as many playwrights on, it feels. So, Brad, I just want to say, you just did such a masterful job with Cormac. And I want to give you, maybe say, Brad, the way that like people roll their eyes when someone's trying on a Cormac, they're trying to do a Cormac. It's a
Yeah.
very similar thing in theater. I don't know how it is if it's so much now, but there for a while, you could tell when somebody was trying to do a Sarah Kane.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. It was, oh, now, I don't know where the plot goes. So now something explodes or somebody eats a baby or, there would just be this
Right.
like, kind of, suddenly it would become extreme or hyperbolic in a way. And you can't fake the funk the same way that you can't fake a Bukowski or you can't fake Cormac. They all got there in their own real and authentic way.
Mhm.
And if you try it on, it always sort of stinks. Fair to say, Maury?
Yeah, I think completely. And you can definitely still tell people who are Sarah Kane fans. I feel like so often I go to a party and I tell people that I'm a playwright and I do theater, and they're like a painter or a sculptor or some other kind of artist. And they're like, oh, I don't really like theater, but I love 448 Psychosis. That happens like once a month. People
And then you
who
just
love that play.
promptly head out the door. Uh, Now, I know you have some stuff going on, and I have some stuff going on too. Obviously, we are collaborators at a theater company called Badmouth Theater Company. That's at badmouthtc.com. We're getting ready to do My Play Moderation in St. Paul, Minnesota, October 3rd to the 13th. Tickets are already on sale, moderationplay.com. I know this is a kind of a global podcast. People are from all over. We probably have more listeners in New York than we do in the Twin Cities. But if you're in the area, think about getting out to the show. You've got something going on right now, Maury, in the Big Apple in Manhattan. You don't hear people say the Big Apple much anymore, do you? But it's getting to be Appleseed is fall. So what are you doing out there? You're an actor too, in addition to being a playwright.
Yeah, so right now I'm in a production of The Maids that's going to be going up as part of Circle Theater Festival, put up by RJ Theater. It's going to be at the Flea in Tribeca, which is it's one of those really great sort of self-production venues with a great space that you can just rent and do your show there. And I'm super thankful that they're letting us do this. I think they're based out of London, and we actually met them because this woman Talia, who is helping to coordinate the festival, she came to the Maids. We did it in the attic at the Tank, which is a rehearsal space that is in the upstairs of the Tank, which is a similar self-production venue in Midtown Manhattan. And she just loved the show so much that she offered us a slot in the festival, and we basically told her we can't pay to do that. We have no money. And she said that's no problem. And
Awesome.
And we were just put into the festival, and it's really great. And I want to read their sort of mission statement for this festival because I think it's very
Sure, yeah, and get the
prescient
plug
to
in
today's themes.
yeah,
Yes,
and let people
you
know
can
where.
go.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you can go on rjtheatercompany.com, theater spelled the correct way, the British way, with the R-E.
Uh-huh.
And go to Circle Theater Festival, which is up at the top. And this is part of their mission statement. The festival's productions are a far cry from the predictable polish of mainstream theater. Instead, they offer unvarnished performances that are as gripping as they are honest. Here, theater is stripped down to its core, allowing the raw talent and passion of the performers to shine through. It's a bold reminder that the great theater doesn't require elaborate sets or costume, just a powerful story and the courage to tell it, which I think is as close as you're going to get to that kind of in-your-face manifesto. And so when I read that, I was like, thank God these people found us. And I'm really happy to work with them. And they've got a couple other shows. And I'll talk about The Maids in a moment.
Sure. Yeah, and of course,
The
Maids is about Canadian healthcare, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Go on,
I mean,
yeah.
If you know how The Maids ends, that's a little bit true.
Okay.
So they're also doing productions of a really great play called Gideon's Knot. Do you know that play, Kevin?
I've heard of it. No, but I don't know it.
It is fantastic. It's a two-hander about a parent-teacher conference where there's a mother whose son has just taken his own life.
Oh no.
Because not to spoil it, but because he's created a piece of art that is so controversial that he becomes, he becomes kind of a pariah. I think he was in sixth grade.
Okay.
And he takes his own life, and it's a conversation about art and letting your kids be an artist. It's a beautiful play. They're also doing Winter's Tale, some excellent Shakespeare.
By Edward de Vere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can talk about that off the record. But they've also got a show called Princess Hamlet, which I believe is a gender bent Hamlet. And then they've got one called PVT Wars, which is about a veterans hospital. And then there's a whole host of shorts and 10-minute plays that are going to be at the Flea all fall. So if you're in the New York City area, come on down to Tribeca and see some shows.
Absolutely. And
when is that again? When is that happening again? Sorry.
Oh my gosh. You can find it online, but it's September through November. There are 6 dates that are spread out. I believe September 2nd and 21st, October 2nd, 12th, and 25th, and then November 2nd.
Mari, what are you doing to hold on to your lines in between? It's because it's not a huge cast, is it? You've got a lot of lines, and what are you doing? Are you doing pickup rehearsals in between, or how are you going to do it?
Yeah, we start pickup rehearsals next week because we have a new actress joining the cast to play the role of Madame, which if you don't know the plot of The Maids, they are maids for a Madame, and she comes in for 10 very funny minutes in the middle of the play and then promptly exits. So we've got a great new actress coming in to do that. I mean, just painfully running them and saying them out loud every single day. And it's a horrible process.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Really the worst. It's the worst part of acting by far. But
absolutely.
You have to do it. It's like going to the dentist. You just have to do it.
Right. Yes. Yeah, but then you have to have nightmares about it for years after. Like, I don't know if I'll ever recover from my few times trotting the boards, as they say. I did a Neil Simon play.
Yeah. Wait, which one?
I did The Good Doctor. And there's a scene, with the dentist pulling teeth at the beginning of that play. But that's great. How big is the cast, Mari? Is it 3, 4?
So it's a 3-person cast, and it's primarily me and then my good friend Kara Gordon, who is also a playwright. It's with her theater company, Elegy. You can follow them, Elegy with an IE.NYC. And we just decided that we wanted to do this show. She's an incredible actress. I mean, there's nobody else who I would want to be alone on stage with for 75 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's an island. It's an island out there for sure.
Yeah, and we're both on stage for the majority of the play.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm off stage for 7 minutes of the play, and she's probably off stage for 4 minutes of the play.
Yeah,
it does not
go.
Stop.
Yeah,
but honestly, it's better that way. It's so much better than segmenting it down into scenes, and it's just so much better to go all the way through.
And sort of how much dramaturgically, like in terms of history, did you do any research? I mean, obviously, it's a play by Jean Genet. I don't know. We haven't covered Genet yet on the pod, so. I mean, what is he like? He's like a mid-century French playwright, sort of.
Yeah,
earlier.
you should do a Genet episode because he's got a crazy life. And I didn't do that much research going in, just because I did a lot of research on the event that the play is based off of. If people don't know, it's based on these 2 sisters that actually were maids and did murder their mistress, their boss. It's far more gruesome than anything that happens in the show. The show is basically a farce. It's hilarious. But yeah, he wrote the play in, I think, 47.
Right after the war, and kind of toward the end of the war.
Yeah, and so he was a bit of a surrealist, but I think sometimes his theater work gets overshadowed by Beckett. It's interesting. I have a book on like post-war theater, and I was like, I hope there's something about Jean Genet in here, and it was just a Beckett book. It was just a Beckett book, which is great. But yeah, he just had a really interesting life. I mean, he was a petty criminal his entire life. He went to jail for many, many, many years. And I think he's mostly known as a novelist for The Thieves' Journal. But I knew this play, yeah.
No, but I knew him as a playwright.
You do it in college. Yeah, I think if you're a theater person, you know him because of this play. It's definitely his most famous play, and it is his best play. But yeah, I think a lot of people read it in college. I read it in college. And then I saw the movie, great movie with Glenda Jackson and Susanna York.
Oh,
and I think that's how most people come to it.
I'm going to have to I'll have to watch that sometime. Fun. Well, and so, cleaving to the topic, right? Sarah Kane, what was your first exposure to her work? Was it reading it or did you go to a production?
It's like a funny story. I've been thinking about it for the past couple days because I don't think about it that often. But okay, Brad, not to dox your location, but do you remember there used to be a Landmark Theater in Royal Oak, Michigan, downtown?
Yeah, yeah, they turned it into a parking lot a couple of years ago.
Nope, it's ugly condos now. So
Oh, okay,
if you
okay,
wanna
yeah, that's right. The parking
live,
lot's next to it. Yeah.
it definitely has a parking lot. It's an Imagine Theater and bowling alley
hmm
with
hmm
horrible gray condos, cast a
hmm
shadow over the whole street. But they used to show the National Theater live recordings.
Oh yeah.
hmm
Okay.
Yeah, Kevin, do you remember them?
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
They were
that's a whole
great.
thing.
Yeah, and I mean,
Well,
I was like a little
explain to
theater
people
kid.
what that is for the people who aren't theater geeks like us.
Yeah, so I think it's the National Theater of England, National Theater of
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
National Theater
The
of England
UK. Yeah.
of the
Right
UK. I
in the
wasn't sure if
center of
they're
the center of London. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, huge theater. They do a ton of productions. They do kind of big, glitzy productions, usually with huge production value. And I mean, they're gorgeous and they're great to watch, but they record them and then they send them across the pond to be played in movie theaters. And now I think you can watch them online. But in my day, in 2016, you had to watch them in a movie theater and they used to play them at the Landmark in Royal Oak. And I remember I went and I saw a couple things. I saw Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and I saw Angels in America, and I sat my white butt down and listened for 7 hours to that one. But I mean, and I was just so interested because up until then, I mean, if you're from the Midwest, if you're from like a normal suburb in the Midwest, you get exposed to theater, but it's like I said, it's through like Guys and Dolls,
hmm
maybe Sondheim if someone's cultured.
Yeah.
Les
Yeah.
Mis, maybe,
Yeah, I definitely saw
there's a
Les
lot of,
Mis,
mhm,
Wicked, that kind of
mhm.
thing. And I mean, I liked it. I thought I was going to be a star on Broadway. So I definitely liked
Hey,
all of that stuff.
you're young. You're the Zoomer whisperer. You're like my Zoomer translator. So
Well,
you've
I'm
got
off
nothing but
off
time.
Broadway now, so
Yeah.
off
Hey, listen,
off.
there you go. I'm looking right now and it's NTA.
Mhm.
Well, it's ntathome.com. They've got a collection of stuff.
Yeah, you can see a lot of really good stuff on there. But I remember I was like obsessed with these recordings of these plays. And so I went home and I went on YouTube, like any good Zoomer, and I looked up
Mhm.
National Theater Live to see what they had and all the content. And there were some set design videos about a little play called Cleansed by a woman named Sarah Kane. And I watched these
Mhm.
videos and I had never seen anything like it. It was industrial and gray and sad and scary. I was like, I've never seen theater that looks like this. Up until now, it's all been glitter and leotards and character shoes and
Sure,
Neil
and they were
Simon.
breaking into
You
song
know,
and yeah, right. Mhm.
yeah. And I mean, even if it's like a serious play, it was like a bunch of women with southern accents squabbling around a table. Great, some great plays that are like that. But so I decided to read Cleansed. I think I was 17, and I decided to read Cleansed. And I remember it was like 11 o'clock at night. I read the first half of it up until there is a scene in the middle where a character has a pole, you know, he
Inserted.
gets it inserted, let's say,
Mhm. Mhm.
into him
Mhm.
in a scary way. And I remember it
Okay.
made me so sick that I had to shut my laptop and stop reading it.
Yeah.
I was completely disturbed and it kept me up all night. I had
Mm.
no idea like what to do with myself. I always thought I had a strong stomach, but when I read that, it just like shook me in this way. Like I couldn't imagine seeing it on stage. And then I returned to it the next night and I finished it and it got, even worse and creepier and scarier, but it was beautiful. It's a beautiful play about love. If you haven't read it or seen it, I highly recommend. It's a very beautiful play about love. It's a love story. And I didn't realize that until I had finished it. And ever since then, I've been completely obsessed. I think in the next couple weeks, I bought her Methuen drama collection and I read all of them. And I watched her short film Skin, which is, I think it's on
Mhm.
YouTube if you
Yeah,
haven't
you
seen
can
it.
watch
Yeah.
Skin. Yeah, it's a
Ewan
short one.
Bremner, one of my
Hmm.
favorite actors. He is amazing. Um,
Of Train Spotting fame.
of Train Spotting fame and Naked.
And Naked.
Naked, 1993, great movie.
Banger.
Maggie.
Maggie.
He just yells Maggie over and over again, and it's
incredible.
And it's amazing. But I've just been like totally obsessed ever since. I mean, she just like rocked my worldview about what theater is, and I don't think I would be the same person if I hadn't gone on YouTube and looked up National Theater Live.
Well, and what's great too, Mar, is we've known each other for a while now through the theater and through this podcast. So, hey, there you go, Brad. It's worth it, right?
Yeah.
But I really believe you too. I know that there's almost like an obligation to be a Sarah Kane stan, right? It's like, it'd be like if you're into metal, you've got to pay fealty to, I don't know, Slayer or something, right? Yeah, you know what I mean? Kind of to put it on. But I believe that you're sincere here too. That's a very cool story.
I think there's so many people who they want to say that Sarah Kane is like their favorite playwright as some kind of edgelord projection. They're just like, I like it because it's so violent and so extreme. And I think there's a lot of kind of virtue signaling with people who are outside of the theater who love Sarah Kane. And they're like, I like Sarah Kane, not because that's real theater, not like every other play that's ever existed. And it's like, no. You don't understand how much she loved every other play that ever existed. And I think her reputation precedes her, obviously. And
and I respect
a bit too seriously.
Indeed. Yeah. Like they take Chekhov too seriously. I respect somebody who says, no, it's not for me. Like, this is just, it's not my kind of theater, right?
Yeah. I mean, the bits of it I've read and experienced, I quite enjoyed, but I could definitely see it not being for, I don't know, what, 80% of people, maybe. Like there's some difficult stuff to get through in there for sure. But there is this element of like, she was transgressive, but a lot of times transgressive stuff turns me off because it feels like it's being transgressive because it doesn't have anything else to say or do, you know? Like, how am I gonna fill up this scene? Well, just make something insane happen. And then you've got your chapter, your scene, or whatever. But
you could be like Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah. But for her, it all feels like it's pointed in a direction, at least. Yeah, it's not just breaking, it's not just transgressing to transgress.
Like, it's so like David Mamet, Atlantic Acting School. Like, if your intention is clear, you will communicate. And all of her plays have such a clear intention. They might look sort of amorphous on the page and appear to be kind of confusing and surreal and about nothing, but they're extremely clear in what they're about. Every single one of them. You kind of can't get it wrong.
One thing that I'm doing right now, I'm looking at the cleansed wiki, and I think if you just look at that with your playwright hat on, or I guess even your audience hat on, every paragraph, in the synopsis, which is maybe a dozen paragraphs long, is a stage image. She was very clearly invested in moment after moment of image after image. I mean, the scene you were describing, in the next scene, Tinker beats Carl. Where is it? Yeah. Wanting him to admit that he and Rod are romantically involved. He sodomizes Carl with a long pole, threatening to shove it through his entire body. Carl gives up Rod's name and apologizes to Rod for it. Tinker then cuts out Carl's tongue and makes him swallow Rod's ring. In any other play, in the Edward de Vere body of work, the Shakespeare body of work, in any other play, that's like the highlight of the play. That is the moment. Yeah. That is the dagger in midair and the bloody hands, right? In this play, it's just like, that's just one of 20 things like that happen. So that's what you're in for. And so she's doing this kind of like body horror, human dissection, and in a way that, like, people will, critics will say, well, hey, Hamlet is a psychological dissection of a person, right? She's literally just doing it on stage. That was sort of her whole thesis, her whole project was to put on stage what the Greeks and what other playwrights would leave off stage. That was her entire thing, was to show, not tell, in extremis, almost to a fault. Like if it's not your thing, it's like it's not your thing. She was definitely not like, it's stronger if you don't see the shark. She was like, no, the shark bites his feet off. The shark is right there. And you know what's funny is that I went and have either of you seen Romulus? Seen the new Alien?
No.
Like her stuff is like not that different from like the body horror of an Alien film. Like they're adjacent to one another. You could kind of do a cheeky little, glass bead game comparison of the Alien films and how they work and how a Sarah Kane play works. I think at least this one. Yeah.
I think, yeah. I mean, there were so many other playwrights at the time that she was writing that were kind of dealing with similar themes and trying to be shocking. But what really sets her apart is that she is so precise. She's incredibly precise. There's not any ink wasted on that page. She thinks in images, she thinks in action. And it's incredible to see, because a lesser writer would just write a scene where the guy gets, I don't know, stabbed and bleeds out and monologues for 5 pages and there's a fight, but she just gets right to the point. And it's incredible. She thinks in images. I mean, she was a great dramatist. She wasn't just like a great writer, she was a great dramatist, which I think when it comes to playwrights, there are some playwrights that are great writers and some that are great dramatists, but every once in a while you get both. And I think that's really what sets Sarah Kane apart, is she was only writing for the stage. She would refuse to write for film and television. I think she wrote some monologues, but she wasn't a novelist. She was
so many people of our generation have their eye on Hollywood. They have their eye on the TV writer's room. That's really what they want. And they know that the barrier to entry to do a play is a little lower. Maybe they can get noticed, then they can go out to Hollywood and they can write on a vampire show or whatever they want to do. Right. But still, they're so pure because they love the theater. Like, yeah, okay, please. In any case, you're right. She was the real article. I have something from, well, and I have to tease the After Dark. So for every episode on Art of Darkness, we do an extra 20, 30 minutes for our subs and our DOMs, Substack, Patreon. We're going to look at, and this is something you sent, Mari, Alex Sears, this fellow. We're going to look at an interview he had with her that I found on the website that you shared. We'll do that on the After Dark. Go to patreon.com/artofdarkpod if you want to support the show. Oh, and then also, Brad and I, we have a live show in October in Detroit, Michigan, October 26th. Tickets are on sale. Go to artofdarkpod.com. We're doing the what is it? The Uncanny Death of Harry Houdini. Yes, and it's going to be, it's going to be a Halloween party. Costumes are optional, but encouraged. People are coming in from out of town for that. If you are, I think Brad said, you know where to find Brad. Find him on Twitter. Brad knows the lay of the land. Yeah, it's going to be a good time, Brad.
Yeah, absolutely. Go to the website. There's a banner there to get tickets. It is limited, and I do think we're going to have a butt in every seat. So if you're planning on coming, I would encourage you to get your hands on those tickets, and we hope to see you there.
Absolutely, it's going to be a hoot, and we will cover the Houdini Lovecraft connection. Yeah, we have to make sure we do that. Mari, you're a Michigander, correct? Is that how you identify?
I was shouting out those Detroit suburbs.
Royal Oak. Yeah, the royalest of oaks.
Yeah. Well,
it was the coolest. It was the coolest place, and now I think it's Ferndale. Ferndale's cooler than Royal Oak.
Yeah.
Royal Oak had American Apparel. That's all.
I'm not cool anymore, so I don't really know. But I think cool migrated down from Royal Oak sometime in the 20 teens. Into Ferndale, and then it has been since then shifting over to Hazel Park.
Brad, you're probably the coolest podcaster in all of Michigan.
I
Right?
moved to a new suburban town, so I probably am the coolest podcaster in this particular suburb.
All right, very
That's
good.
probably the case.
And modest, but I like to puff you up a little bit, Brad. I
I
mean, come on, you're a
appreciate it.
very cool
Yeah.
dude. So
Yeah.
I've got this interview, and I figured this could spark a little conversation. So this is an
Yeah.
extract of an interview with this fellow named Steve Waters. And of course, Sarah Kane took her own life in 1999 after completing 448 Psychosis, the sort of suicide note of a play that we talked about on the core episode. Um, and this is an interview with a fellow named Steve Waters on the 20th anniversary of Kane's death. They revisited the this interview, and this Steve Waters fellow got his creative writing MA at the University of East Anglia uh, with Sarah Kane in 1992. And this fellow, Steve Waters, has been described as one of the UK's most accomplished political playwrights. Okay. So I'll just read a few paras of this because I think this could be interesting and might inform a little bit, the conversation. So this is the interviewer asking, what were your early experiences with Sarah Kane on that course? I can tell you exactly how it began. I was late for my first seminar. I had gone for a walk into Birmingham thinking that I was nearer to the campus than I actually was. Unfortunately, it's an all too common experience for me. I walked into the room and David Edgar was sitting across the room in his usual black jacket, looking like a Marxist from the 1970s. Typical theater, and a young woman in a leather jacket with short blonde hair and a piercing was sitting by the door. Very beautiful. She was an extremely beautiful person, Sarah. Saz, as we knew her. And I just thought, you're a really nice person. She was very friendly. I think that she found it quite a traumatic year. Why was it traumatic? She'd been this incredibly successful, very bright student at Bristol University. I think she did a year doing other stuff, possibly, then came to Birmingham, the only game in town at that point. It felt, I think, for her quite male, quite middle aged. There were only 3 women on that course that year. She just wouldn't take, Sarah's gay. She was a woman and she was angry about that kind of stuff. She also didn't want to be identified with certain things, too. She was an extremely political person, but in a much more immediate way than me. It was different to anything I'd experienced as politics before. Couple more pairs here. What was the different kind of politics? I think this is very telling, and then I'll open it back up again. But it was about confrontation. There was an amazing weekend, for instance, where Terry Johnson came along and led a workshop. He workshopped one of Sarah's monologues, and he just said, "This isn't really working." He gave an action in the monologue, perfectly valid things, but he did it in a rather unfortunately arrogant fashion. It must be said, she was seething. We have Brad's having flashbacks to grad school. We all went to a party and he was there. Sarah just let loose. She wasn't prepared to just take that in a way that we often do in pedagogical situations, thinking I'm the problem, not them. She didn't think that. Not in an arrogant way, but in a way that was about politics, I think. Next thing, she wrote a play, which I think is the genesis of Blasted, a short play with a woman with a gun to a man's head, a young woman and a middle-aged man, I think, and made them workshop that. It followed everything he wanted, action and objectives and so on, but it was obviously an attack on him, and he didn't like that, as you can imagine. The next day, we did a workshop with a very nice guy called Richard Pinner, and he did one of those things. Let's all do an image of how we feel after this workshop weekend. Sarah got into the middle of the room, sat in a chair, picked up a piece of script, hawked and gobbed a huge greenie onto this script, put it on the chair, and walked out of the space. He just went, "Thank you, Sarah." Hell yeah. Let's go. Yeah.
I would have loved to be in a playwriting class with her. Let me tell you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then
Well,
the next paragraph.
that confidence is impressive because I mean she was young. I mean,
Oh yeah. I mean, 1992. So how old would she have been? She
probably would have been like 20, 21, 22.
Yeah,
right.
something like that. Yeah.
It's tough because if you're trying to learn your craft and it's early days and you go and somebody tells you, hey, this isn't working. There's a big party that's like they're probably right. I don't know what I'm doing. So to have that confidence is in a lesser talent, that confidence could be completely self-destructive, right? Like But she happens to have the chops that are, nobody's going to tell her anything that she didn't already know. So it's cool. That's a great story.
It really is. Mari, have you seen many productions IRL?
I have never seen a live production of a Sarah Kane
Oh,
play. They're not done super often. I was thinking about this
there was a
over the past
faddish
week. They're
time
not
when they
done
were,
often.
but yeah, there was a period where they were. But I bet you could go out of your way to try to find them. They're probably on, college campuses and things. But yeah, you're right. I haven't seen a poster for a Sarah Kane play even, around in a while. There'll be chances.
Yeah. I wonder if there's not so much of an appetite for it because besides Blasted, she's not exactly doing social realism, which I think is a
Mm.
bit, contemporary and of the moment. I think that there just might not be that much of a taste for something that's more abstract and challenging.
Yeah, I think that. Oh my, decline that. I think that she had such an arch Gen X sensibility that has maybe become. It's not of the moment, but I feel like people are always going to continually cycle back to her, uh, not least because of her the sort of intense feminism in the heart of the plays. Not to reduce her to that ugly word, but do you know what I mean? Like young people are always going to kind of, I think, rediscover her, and her treatment of the body and state. Like I said, those stage images are just so provocative and even like fun to imagine and to think about tackling. She has her scripts are these great blueprints, which is really what people of the theater want.
Yeah, I think it's so tough because the plays are so good, and I do think that they'll be done, decades and decades into the future. But I think like kind of post-COVID, the taste is for something that goes down a little bit easier. And so it might
Right.
be a little while
Mm.
before someone who's not German wants to do one of her plays here in the States. She's huge in
Right.
Germany.
Huge in Germany.
Mhm.
She's huge throughout Europe. She's like a household name in Germany. I mean, as much as somebody can be, like a contemporary-ish playwright, which is certainly a foreigner. She was huge in her own lifetime. I mean, they talk about that, about how shocked they were when she passed away. I can't remember who it was, but somebody said every capital you'd visit in throughout Europe, they would want to know about Sarah Kane. Which, like, what a coup for a young woman from that
That's
little that
amazing.
that troubled little island, to dominate the continental zeitgeist. I was reading that they sort of saw her as a because of course the UK is not Europe. It's not the continent, very famously, and so they're always sort of looking at each other to try to get insight into the psychology of the other. And I think the people on the continent really felt like she was giving them some insight into the psyche of the British in the 90s.
There's got to be there had to have been some sort of old staid theater people who once Sarah Kane kind of got out and got famous on the continent were like, what, why do they like her? What's going on here? Like a little bit of like the horses out
Mm-hmm.
of the barn. This is what everybody's gonna think is English theatre. But
Yeah, there were plenty of people who did not. There were plenty of people in the British theatrical establishment who really did not like her, and they all ate their words. They
Billington, most
all
famously.
ate their words
yeah.
and went back. But she was so famous in her own lifetime that her play Crave, she had to put on under a pseudonym.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right. We talked about that. She could because she wanted a little more objectivity in terms of how it was received. Was that right? I
Yeah,
think
I
that
think
was the
she didn't
case.
want
Yeah.
her reputation to really color the show. And then surprise, surprise, it was extremely well received and everybody loved it.
Right.
Amazing.
Right. Well, I've got another article. This is from The Guardian. Womp womp. Don't shoot the messenger. But hey, what are you going to do for the UK theater? But this is Laura Barton, an article from 2016. Why do plays about sex and violence written by women still shock? As audience members are escorted from the latest revival of Sarah Kane's play Cleansed in London this week after fainting in the aisles, is there more at play than just weak stomachs? I'll read a few paras of this for kicks. There's a moment around 20 minutes into Kane's play Cleansed when, without great fanfare, the brutality commences. Tinker produces a large pair of scissors and cuts off Carl's tongue. Read the stage directions. Carl waves his arms, his mouth open, full of blood, no sound emerging. It was not long after this scene that an audience member attending a preview performance of Katie Mitchell's production at the National Theater this week collapsed. The house lights went up. Ushers hurried in to escort him out, but he was not alone. By the end of the first week's run, the production had accumulated a grand total of 5 faints and 40 walkouts. It will run until early May.
They're just like me for real.
I love it. I love it. So a few more here. There isn't a big tradition of putting the violence of atrocity on stage in Britain, Director Mitchell told Radio 4 this weekend. We're afraid of that dark female voice that insists we examine pornography and violence. We just don't feel comfortable being asked to do those things, particularly by a woman. I don't know how much the fact that it's written by a woman affects people
they're not really building a very good case for because it's a woman who
they'll
wrote
always
it.
You understand they'll always say that.
Yeah.
Cleansed was Kane's third play, described as a tender and violent fable. It's set on a university campus and explores the bounds of love. Kane said that she wrote the play after reading Roland Barthes' assertion that being in love is like being in Auschwitz. I don't know what that means, but well, this is Art of Darkness. So
I feel like there's a Holocaust denier joke in there somewhere that I'm not come up with.
Right? Yeah. Let's. We want to stay on YouTube, don't we?
Yeah.
Don't we?
She was definitely tortured by love. If you read specifically Crave and 448 Psychosis and Cleanse too, I mean, she goes on these long monologues about how awful being in love makes her feel.
Well, wasn't there? It's
so
been a
true.
while. Yeah, it is true. Unrequited love is like agony. It is like having a limb torn off. I mean, it's like watching somebody saw your foot off. I mean, it's just horrible when they, when they don't because it feels it feels unreal. It doesn't make sense because you feel it feels a certain way, and if it's not reciprocated, it triggers all of the most primal anxieties.
Oh yeah, it's like genetic. Yeah, it's like it's deep.
Yeah, it goes right down to the core. Yeah,
and she's a
poet.
If you're listening to this and if you read anything from her work, if you're like, I'm just gonna skim it, I'm just gonna look at something real quick, I think you could look at the monologue from Crave. Kevin, do you know the big monologue in the middle of Crave?
I have it right in front of me.
Gorgeous.
I was even thinking about asking you to read it, but I didn't want to give you homework. Do you want to read it? Or should we?
I would be happy to
read the monologue from Crave by Sarah Kane, Mari. I'll put it in. I
actually have the PDF.
Amazing. I love it. I love it.
I'm just doing my
one
research.
of her always open tabs.
Yeah. Yes. And before you do, I'll give Mari just a second to prepare herself spiritually or whatever. But we have a Discord now by popular demand. A friend of the pod, slid into my DM Marinos and said, hey, you have a Discord? No, we have a Telegram. Okay, well, let's set up a Discord. So go to artofdarkpod.com/Discord. Get in there. We have a range of channels, all very fun. There's a recommendations channel, a channel where you can post your own creative projects. We've got a channel for the book club. We've got a channel devoted to pens, memes, anyway, there you go. artofdarkpod.com/Discord. So Mari, can we contextualize Crave a little bit before you read the monologue?
Yeah. So Crave is a play that, if you don't look at it closely, has no plot and no characters. There are 4 performers that are indicated, A, B, C, and M. And I believe it's implied that A and B are male and C and M are female. But again, right, it's not indicated. That's just the way that it's usually done. And the play is basically just a series of lines that may or may not be connected. But again, because of her talent and because of her precision, you can completely tell where they are and they aren't. And occasionally there's threads that go through the lines, and then occasionally they seem to come out of nowhere. But this monologue comes in about the middle of the play. It's read by the character A, who, again, we have no indication who this person is. There's no trigger for this monologue. And before I read it, I would like everyone to know that this is one sentence with no punctuation.
Go.
Are you ready? And I want to play hide and seek and give you my clothes and tell you I like your shoes and sit on the steps while you take a bath and massage your neck and kiss your feet and hold your hand and go for a meal and not mind when you eat my food and meet you at Rudy's and talk about the day and type up your letters and carry your boxes and laugh at your paranoia and give you tapes you don't listen to and watch great films and watch terrible films and complain about the radio and take pictures of you when you're sleeping and get up to fetch your coffee at midnight and have you steal my cigarettes and never be able to find a match and tell you about the TV program I saw the night before and take you to the eye hospital and not laugh at your jokes and want you in the morning but let you sleep for a while and kiss your back and stroke your skin and tell you how much I love your hair, your lips, your neck, your breasts, your ass, and sit on the steps smoking till your neighbor comes home and sit on the steps smoking till you come home and worry when you're late and be amazed when you're early and give you sunflowers and go to your party and dance till I'm black and be sorry when I'm wrong and happy when you forgive me and look at your photos and wish I'd known you forever and hear your voice in my ear and feel your skin on my skin and get scared when you're angry and your eye has gone red and the other eye blue and your hair to the left and your face oriental and tell you you're gorgeous and offend you when I touch you and whimper when I'm next to you and get cold when you take the blanket and hot when you don't and melt when you smile and dissolve when you laugh and not understand why you think I'm rejecting you when I'm not rejecting you and wonder how you could think I'd ever reject you and wonder who you are, but accept you anyway, and tell you about the tree angel enchanted forest boy who flew across the ocean because he loved you, and write poems for you, and wonder why you don't believe me, and have a feeling so deep I can't find words for it, and want to buy you a kitten I'd get jealous of because it would get more attention than me, and keep you in bed when you have to go, and cry like a baby when you finally do, and get rid of the roaches, and buy you presents you don't want, and take them away, and ask you to marry me, and you say no again, but keep on asking, because though you think I don't mean it, I do always have from the first time I asked you, and wander the city thinking it's empty without you, and want what you want, and think I'm losing myself, but know I'm safe with you, and tell you the worst of me, and try to give you the best of me, because you don't deserve any less, and answer your questions when I'd rather not, and tell you the truth when I really don't want to, and try to be honest, because I know you prefer it, and think it's all over, but hang on in for just 10 more minutes before you throw me out of your life and forget who I am and try to get closer to you because it's beautiful learning to know you and well worth the effort and speak German to you badly and Hebrew to you worse and make love with you at 3 a.m. and somehow communicate some of the overwhelming, undying, overpowering, unconditional, all-encompassing, heart-enriching, mind-expanding, ongoing, never-ending love I have for you. And then he sucks out the eyeballs and the baby dies.
That's a different play.
That is a different play. That is not this play. But I mean, that's not what people think of when they think of Sarah Kane. Her reputation really does precede her. They think of the Glorious Feast of Filth?
Sure. Right.
But when there's stuff like that in there.
Very well read, by the way, with no practice, Maury. You did a very fine job of
it's called being an actor.
Actor. Yes, an actor in the theater. Yeah, really well done. And you can again, you could try to fake that, but there's a cadence and there's a poetry to it and a genuineness, that.
And it's so beautiful that she gives you no punctuation, because there are so many directors who take that so seriously. And Kevin, I would be interested to hear your thoughts, but one of the things I was taught in acting school was to write out your script by hand with no punctuation in it. And I've always taken that to heart. I think nothing of my punctuation.
That's the first I've heard.
It's beautiful that she just totally, it's such a gift, that freedom.
Fascinating. Yeah, I may have heard that at some point, but Yeah, no. I mean, one of the
I'm
things I
sure
learned as a
most playwrights
playwright.
hate it.
Well, I mean, one of the things I heard as a playwright, though, is that, people will get a script and the first thing they do is just get rid of every stage direction. Just get rid of every,
Mhm.
as actors, which is good. That's good advice, right? And as a playwright, I'm definitely of the Occam's razor school of stage directions. Don't be telling people how to say lines. Don't be telling people where to stand. Don't overprescribe. You're giving a blueprint, right? I mean, and this
Mhm.
play, Crave, is a great example of that. I mean, it's what, A, B, C, and M. You said it's like four. They don't even
Yeah, and
have
I think
names. I mean,
there's one stage direction in the whole play, and I think it comes directly after that. And it's just that I think a woman is shaking her head.
right?
And it's like the only
Like,
stage direction in the whole play.
sure, incredible. I love that kind of thing. Another thing that you and I did recently that I know this podcast has a certain amount of reach, and I know people who listen to this. Many of them are creative. I had a great time working on moderation, which we're doing here in October at the Valdez Theater Conference. And you, Amanda, and I on the other podcast on Mouthing Off, we interviewed Dawson Moore, the director of the Valdez Theater Conference, twice, once before I went and then once here recently. And they just launched their call for scripts. So if you're a playwright sitting at Global, could be anywhere, Europe. You'd have to get yourself to Alaska, but they're taking submissions now, and that's at theaterconference.org. So I just want to shout that out. Did you submit a play, Mari?
I'm about to.
Okay.
I have not yet,
What are
but
you working on? Do you want to share?
I'm submitting an old play because my new play is not in shape to be submitted anywhere. But I do have
Gotcha.
something new that will hopefully be staged in New York in January or February that is about
Okay.
it's about a little boy and being on the internet.
All right.
He's caught up in something of an FBI sting operation.
Cool.
Is he swatted? Is it like a
as what
swatting
happens.
thing?
What do you mean?
Do you know about swatting, right? Where
I think I don't know
they
the verb. I probably
you
know the
don't.
idea.
No,
That's
it's
when
where
people. Yeah, go ahead.
go on. No, you Brett.
I was just gonna say it's when people basically call the police or the FBI and report an enemy of theirs has weapons or has done something in which the SWAT team should show up.
No, it's
Yeah.
more. Do you know the book The Terror Factory?
I don't know.
Oh, it's a great book about, something that everybody knows how the FBI creates more terrorists than there are in the world. It's basically about
I've heard this.
It's about the creation of a boy terrorist via an FBI agent. But it's very wacky and whimsical, and it's very funny.
Just like an FBI
something of
sting
a
is.
variety show.
I love it.
Okay.
I love it.
So
Sounds great.
Awesome.
be on the lookout for that. It's called
well,
the
I need-
Davy Crockett of the modern world. So
The
Okay,
be on the
Davy
lookout.
Crockett. Okay, yeah, be on the lookout. Well, whenever you have something more, you can come back on, of course, because I know we have people out in New York listening. We'll go here for another 10 minutes or so, then we'll get on to the After Dark for the patrons, where we'll talk about this more Sarah Kane. We'll talk about this interview that we have and use that as a means to sort of continue the conversation. But again, what's the URL for the Maids? What's the website for that again?
So
for the
it is
festival?
RJ, just the letters
Mhm.
RJ
Yeah.
Theater,
Mhm.
spelled the right way,
Okay. Spelled.
company.com. And
Gotcha.
you can buy tickets to every show in the Circle Theater Festival there on their website.
Great.
Come see the Maids.
Listen, you
Please
live
come
in
see
you
the
live
Maids.
in New York
Please
City.
work hard on it.
Yeah, go see the Maids. I mean, she's busy memorizing lines. She's taken time out of her busy schedule to come on Art of Darkness. And
I'm a loser. I got
And
nothing
honestly,
to do except the Maids.
if you're living in New York City but you're not going to theater, I mean, what the hell are you even doing there?
I
Couldn't
gotta
agree more. There's some
totally
really
agree.
incredible work, especially right now. There's a lot of great work.
Yeah.
I think theater is kind of just bouncing back from
And let me tell
that thing
you-
that happened.
Right, the thing that shall not be named. Let me tell you, you're going to have plenty of time to sit on Netflix after you flame out of New York City, after you decide you want to start a family, after you move back to the Midwest, after you start your podcast to desperately try to remain connected to the outside world. You'll have plenty of time to not attend the theater. But Brad's point is right on. Like, if you're a listener to this podcast and we're mentioning like a show in New York City, I really genuinely would hope that you'd make the effort to go out and see it. And I know, it's not easy to get out all the time. Everybody has very busy schedules, but that town, that is a theater town. That's a theater town. That's a jazz town. And if you're not doing one or both of those things, man, like, you're missing out.
And if you want to see a show that is, really visceral and provocative and physical and really, really funny, then come see Jean Genet's The Maids. Don't read it before you come. If you haven't, you can read it after.
And the poster is really fun. The picture of it is really fun. It's like, I think you're in there and you're really, really rouged up, aren't you? Like,
yes, that is comes up in the play.
Okay. And you're sort of, and you're in a maid's outfit. So, okay. All right. What did you learn
we dress
about?
Much more modestly in the show. Sorry, guys. Sorry to all the listeners out there.
It's all over. It's all over. I take back everything I said. What did you learn about French theater? I mean, or even just doing Genet through the process? What was that like?
I mean, it was a challenge because it went against so many of the things that I've said on this podcast today. Because French theater is, it's super precise in these super kind of pedantic ways. Like, we had to pay attention to every comma, every semicolon, every period. We were being extremely specific with the text because French theater is kind of like that. I mean, Beckett wasn't himself French, but he's very, very particular about the way that, not him anymore, but his estate is very particular about the way that the plays are done. And if you read classical French theater, if you read Moliere, and who's the other guy? Who's the other?
Oh God.
Another guy? Moliere and another guy.
Yeah, go on. I'll look it up.
Well, if you read any of those plays, they're so intricate and they're so well put together. They're really like a spider web. Yes, Racine, thank you. They're really like a spider web, and you have to be delicate and precise with them, but still find a way to make it new and fresh and exciting every night. And that play is a real test of stamina. He was not messing around. That play is a test of your mental stamina, your physical stamina. It's very intense. But it's also just so fun. It's fun to do. And a lot of French theater is like that. Like I said, you read those classic French plays, and there's a little adverb qualifier before every single line. There's 20 to 30 stage directions on every single page. Like, she flicks her wrist 2 centimeters to the right. And all these plays are like that. And they're these classic farces. He does come from that like farcical tradition of the slamming doors.
Right. Somebody's hiding under their table with their ass in the air, kind of, woo.
Absolutely. That play has all of that. And
never
so it was about, But I guess if people don't know what The Maids is about, now that we're at the tail end, I'll give a little synopsis. It is about 2 sisters who are maids, and they play these sort of twisted psychological dress-up games with each other, and then they end up plotting to murder their mistress, their boss, and the whole plan goes completely awry. Nothing works out as they want, and you gotta see the end, because the ending is pretty nuts. You're not gonna see it coming.
All right. Okay, very good. Well, we're almost at the hour here. This is great, Mari. You're always welcome to come back on. You've got a show to promote, whatever else. There's no end of stuff. Absolutely. I'm sure we could talk about. Brad, do we have any other housekeeping? You're doing Fela Kuti. We've got book club coming up this weekend. Billy Budd.
Yeah, book club. Billy Budd. Yeah.
I can't say. Honestly, I am desperate for this book club because I want you to explain to me what the hell is going on in that book.
I was hoping you would explain it to me. So. This will be interesting.
Yeah. And book club is where we hang out. For patrons, the link will be on Patreon and Substack. And I did notice, Brad, you're doing a lot with Substack too. So even if people are on even if people are on Patreon, just go and do the free subscription to Substack, because Brad's doing a lot of stuff, sort of daily, day in and day out. And of course,
clip videos and that sort of thing. So yeah.
Yeah. Fun. We're having a good time on Art of Darkness. It's been a good year so far, and I'm really excited about what we got going on at the theater company. Mara, we're gonna have to have another meeting too about doing a reading of something of yours out here.
Well, before we're done, are you going to plug something that our theater company has coming up?
What, like moderation? Yeah, moderationplay.com. Yes, thank you. My play, the play that's been developed at 5 different places, the Valdez Theater Conference. We just finally got tired of waiting, and we're like, hey, let's do this play. It's going to be fantastic. The great Amanda Forstrom, who I'm gonna drag on here. She was 1/3 of the cast of the radio play Basilisk, that's in 2 parts, out now. The whole thing. It's like an AI horror thriller thing that you would probably like if you're an Art of Darkness appreciator. You might like that. I wrote that with Abby Lucas, and if you go on Spotify, you go to Dark Pony Radio Basilisk, you can't miss it, and it's out and it's done, 2 parts. You can listen to it in an evening, and it's rather murdery and bloody and paranoid and very online, and probably the kind of thing that Art of Darkness people would like. What do you think about that? How's that? All right.
That's great.
Yeah. Cool. Good. There we go. So, and again, Mari, the great Mari Sitner, friend of the pod, does the other pod with me. We're going to come back on the After Dark, and we're going to talk more Sarah Kane theater, New York theater, and creativity. I'm also going to pick Brad's brain about how his novel's coming, but we'll do that on the After Dark.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's do it.
All right. See you there.
Bye, everybody.